The NFL draft has come to a close, and now it's time to hand out some Philadelphia Eagles draft grades. And it seems as though General Manager Howie Roseman is operating at a different level and seeing things differently than any other general manager in this sport right now. The Philadelphia Eagles, folks, really did knock it out of the park with this 2023 NFL draft. And I'm excited to really break this down pick for pick. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior. Thank you so much for joining us. So the Eagles got on the board first, round one, number 9 overall, after they had to move up one pick from 10 to 9. And all they had to do, in arguably taking the best player in this draft class, the most dominant, the most gifted guy in Jalen Carter, was traded away to 2024 fourth-round pick to the Chicago Bears. I understand that Jalen Carter comes to Philadelphia with some character concerns, but this is a defensive player who you have to account for on every single snap. He is incredibly disruptive. He can play any single position along the defensive line, and he, by his lonesome, can be a game wrecker in the National Football League. He's an incredibly disruptive player at his position with great power, great burst, and great athleticism. What I think is underrated about him is the development of his pass rush move arsenal. He has a couple of different moves that he can beat you with, and when the offensive line seems to adjust to what he brings to the table, he counters that with a different move. Not only is he really good against the pass in this offensive-laden era, which features a pass-heavy offensive attack, he's very good and disruptive against the rushing game as well. So this is a legitimate three-down player in Jalen Carter. There, of course, were recent questions that surfaced after his arrest and a questionable pro day performance in which he came in overweight. He was falling all over the place at that Georgia pro day. He was winded. He cramped up. But Jalen Carter, when you watch him and what he was able to do over the last couple of years in Athens, Georgia, was a guy who could take over games by himself. 32 tackles last year, 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and honestly, I think that his impact on the game of football, as he had his fingerprints on all of these games, it was even better than the numbers that he put forward. If everything works out here, him teaming up with Jordan Davis, his college teammate, that could be your defensive tackle pairing over the next several years, and this is a franchise building block for you. And although he does have some maturity concerns and some character concerns, he now gets to team up with Kelee Ringo, Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis, and he has an understanding of what this organization expects out of him. And as a football player, this guy can be very, very unique and a special player in this league. I give it an A grade for him. Now make sure you subscribe to us here on Philadelphia Eagles Now. Our draft coverage all throughout the weekend I thought was stellar. We went in depth on all of these prospects. We broke them all down. Shoot, the Eagles traded for DeAndre Swift. We broke it down. We went live for a couple of days. We're on the road to 50,000 subscribers. And if you love the birds and you're a member of the Bird Gang and you're about that Fly Eagles Fly life, subscribe, lock us in. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. After number 9, in which the Eagles took Jalen Carter, they get Nolan Smith at number 30. In my final mock draft, I had the Eagles going with Nolan Smith at number 10. And I had also said they're going to do everything in their power to take Jalen Carter. So I was right on both of those fronts. They loved Nolan Smith. They wanted to trade up for Jalen Carter. They ended up taking both of these players. And it really came as a surprise to me that Nolan Smith continued to fall down the draft board, and I'm really not sure why. He's one of the more gifted edge rushers in this class as a guy who, at his size, at around 240 pounds, ran a 4.4 40-yard dash. In Jalen Carter, you get a former 5-star recruit. In Nolan Smith, you get one of the most highly touted recruits coming out of the high school ranks. The lack of production is a little bit worrisome, but his stock rose due to crazy athletic testing numbers at his size. He's a freaky athlete who is in the similar build of Hassan Reddick, who last year had 16 sacks. Great athlete with great burst, improved hand usage over the years, a good run stopper, which I think is really important because you get Nolan Smith, Carter, and Jordan Davis, who are really good against the run but can also have an impact in the pass game. You really can't double team any of these players. Why I also think this pick is very important is the average age of Derek Barnett, Brandon Graham, Joshua, and Hassan Reddick come September is 29 years, 7 months. You needed to replenish this position and get a little bit younger, and you do that with Nolan Smith, and people rave about his character. They rave about him being a leader in the locker room. He has this vivacious quality to his personality, and he does have a Brandon Graham type of feel where he makes people smile in that locker room. And I do think that's important for an Eagles culture that right now is very, very firm. So what has been your favorite pick for the Eagles during this NFL draft weekend? I mean, there are a lot to choose from. And honestly, I love almost every single pick that the Eagles have made here in the 2023 NFL draft. Drop me a name down below in the comment section. Who is it? You move forward here. Eagles traded back from number 62 to 65 to take Tyler Steen. What's the theme here? Ever since Howie Roseman took some shots on a guy like Jaquan Jarrett at a Temple, he was a bust. Marcus Smith out of Louisville, and then the straw that broke the camel's back, Jalen Carter out of TCU, he has gone to the well. If you remember, prior to the 2022 draft class, for whatever reason, Howie Roseman wasn't tapping in to some of the best programs in the country and the preeminent programs in college football, like Georgia and Alabama. Last 2 years, they've done that. Multiple Georgia players and now multiple Alabama players. Landon Dickerson and now Tyler Steen. He now enters Jeff Stoutland University. And Jeff Stoutland, the best offensive line coach in the National Football League. You have a future need at offensive tackle. You have a need right now that you could use at your disposal in guard, although I think they're pretty pleased with Cam Jurgens playing there. But Steen, I can see why Jeff Stoutland really likes him. A 4-year starter at tackle, might need to shift to guard at the NFL level, but that's fine. He began his career playing defensive tackle at Vanderbilt, so he has really good explosiveness and athleticism coming out of his stance. Moves really well for his size, has some balance issues to a certain degree, but I like the pick for Philadelphia from a quality standpoint and the fact that he has so much experience and you fulfill a need here. Right after number 65, you get Tyler Steen. You choose Sidney Brown. Sidney Brown, to me, has Cam Chancellor vibes. And a pretty cool story here for Philadelphia. On their draft boards, sometimes they mark players by color and by signs. They had a red star next to Sidney Brown's name. And what that means is he defies what it's like to be a Philadelphia Eagle. He brings attributes to the locker room as far as being a team captain type of culture changer, and he's tough as nails. Lunch pail to work type of guy and a blue-collar worker. That's what Sidney Brown is. What I like about his game, too, he had a missed tackle rate of about 15% last year. He has to shore that up, but he can make up for it because he has a knack for making big plays, especially in big moments. He is an incredibly instinctual player who has maximized his athletic profile. This dude is cut. He is in incredible shape. If he needed to run an ultramarathon tomorrow, I believe that he could do that because of the athletic profile, but also the brain and the mindset in between his ears. Great athlete. He's ripped. Plenty of experience at Illinois, capped off by 6 picks in 2022. Misses way too many tackles. I do believe that's something that you can work on. He has this straight line speed and agility, and I think that the Eagles believe they have a future starting safety here in Sidney Brown. You lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson, you lost Marcus Epps, you have Terrell Edmonds as your starter, and Reed Blankenship, the latter of which you hit on as a UDFA. In Sidney Brown in the 3rd round, I like the value, I like the player, and if he could be a Cam Chancellor type of player who's very physical, and lighting you up. Remember the ESPN segment? You got jacked up. Sidney Brown would have been on that segment a lot. 59 tackles, 6 picks, 7 pass breakups, and 1 forced fumble. Like I said, he can make some big plays. Now, the Eagles originally did not have a pick in the 4th round. They moved up and they squandered a future third-round pick in 2024 to take Kelee Ringo. That's okay. Don't be concerned about them giving up that draft asset. They had 2 third-round picks in 2024 heading into today, a compensatory pick and their own pick. They gave one of those up for Kelee Ringo, who a lot of people had a second-round grade on. And he, too, has the athletic attributes of being a first-round pick, but he slid down draft boards because of injury concerns. Shoulder injury, labrum issue, concussion. Some teams believe is a little bit too reserved for being a cornerback when they want a guy who's aggressive with swagger. But you know what I really like? A 4.36 40-yard dash. And the fact that he is going to be given wiggle room to develop. You brought back Darius Slay and James Bradbury. He does not need to play right away. You brought in Greedy Williams on a 1-year contract. 4.36 40-yard dash, fascinating combination of size and speed at his position. Great traits, needs to develop his anticipation at that cornerback spot. That's why he got beat, and sometimes he struggled in coverage. Doesn't always have a feel for the position, but what better cornerback duo to learn from than Darius Slay and James Bradbury? You also needed to get a little bit younger at that position, and I do believe that when these college players go to a new program at the NFL level with a bunch of guys who they played with and won a couple of national championships with, that's important, right? 7 pass breakups last year, good instincts. But you think about it, if you're a worker going to a company and you go to a company in which you have familiarity with either the bosses or your coworkers, it immediately allows you to be a little bit more confident in what you're doing, and it allows you to be more comfortable in your everyday workflow because you have familiar surroundings around you. That's what Kelee Ringo gets here. I'm excited to see that speed pay off at that cornerback position. Tanner McKee is the next pick for the Eagles here. Round 6, 188. He's going to have an opportunity, to compete for Ian Book for quarterback 3 reps. It's going to be Jalen Hurts, obviously, after the contract extension. Marcus Mariota, given the money that the Eagles paid him, will be quarterback 2. In competing for quarterback 3, it's going to be Ian Book, Tanner McKee, and maybe the Eagles handle 4 quarterbacks on the opening 53-man roster, although they might not, to open up another roster spot for a different player at a different position of importance. For Tanner McKee, he brings good size to the quarterback position. Great frame, solid arm. He played in a very, very shitty offense at Stanford, so that's why there was a little bit of a lack of production there. It did lead to flashes of good accuracy because he had some layup throws that he was able to make. Had some early pro-style reps at Stanford in that offense, but doesn't always make the right decisions and lacks top-tier great athleticism. And when I talk about Stanford's offense being mundane, it'll put you to bed. And already, when you're watching Pac-12 late night, Pac-12 at dark, it's already really, really late on the East Coast, right? And when you're watching Stanford's offense, or at least last year, the last couple of years under David Shaw, it put you to sleep. I mean, it's bad. 62% completion percentage, nearly 3,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, 8 picks. They just didn't allow Tanner McKee to really push the ball downfield. We talk about the early pro reps that he got. He did get those pro reps, but it just didn't really flash the ability that he has. I imagine that in round 6 at 188, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, and Brian Johnson very excited to see what he can do in this scheme. Round 7, 249. Eagles go with an athletic freak, Moro Ojomo, the defensive lineman out of Texas. This guy had some crazy athletic testing numbers, if we can actually look at those, Trace, and he lit up the pre-draft measurements here. He's a good tackler with length and leverage. He is at his best when playing against the run, only 5 career sacks, so he's not a great pass rusher. But while Javon Hargrave was awesome last year with 11 sacks, he was bad against the run. So you need better defensive tackle help in going up against the run. He might be able to help there. His lack of moves and bend needed to play edge, but played defensive tackle. He's also smaller for that defensive tackle spot, but I do like his versatility along that front. Given his size, for him to run a 40-yard dash at 5.04, that's pretty solid there. Vertical jump 33 inches, broad jump 9.4. reps on the bench press, 225 pounds, 29 times. So the Eagles probably look at him as a guy who can continue to get better. And maybe when you're playing along other really good players along this defensive front, it allows you to get some of those one-on-one matchups to use your pure athleticism at your disposal. The numbers last year, not crazy by any means. And that Texas defense, it was underwhelming at times as they gave up a lot of points in the Big 12. 33 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 5.5 tackles for loss, and then 3 sacks, 0 forced fumbles. So those are all of the Eagles draft picks. But Howie Roseman couldn't help himself. Howie Roseman traded for another Georgia player. So not only has he drafted 4 Georgia players the last 2 years, he traded for a Georgia player in DeAndre Swift. I already broke this down ad nauseum a little bit earlier in length, but DeAndre Swift is a very good running back who's extremely talented, and you got him by giving up a 7th-round pick, 219 overall, and a 4th-round pick all the way in 2025, when at that point, like the Eagles have in 2024, they could get some compensatory picks in that 3rd-round range, 4th-round range. DeAndre Swift has had high-level production as he's been in the NFL. He's had these knick-knack injuries that have impacted him to a certain degree, but he immediately becomes the most talented running back on this roster. He's better than Kenneth Gainwell. He's more durable than Rashad Penny, although DeAndre Swift does have durability concerns in terms of just overall toughness. But from a speed, explosiveness, pull-away speed, pure ability point of view, DeAndre Swift is very, very talented. It's a contract year for him. He's going to be motivated to perform well and stay healthy this year, which is a good problem for the Eagles. And now they have a backfield of DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell, Rashad Penny, and Boston Scott. And let me round out with this. There is a great short video out there of Kamala Harris saying, "Do not come, do not come." And then the splice comes in of Donald Trump. He says, "I'm going to come." That's Howie Roseman when he looks at these Georgia players. He has this infatuation with all of these Georgia Bulldogs. It's the Philadelphia Bulldogs. It's Athens in the Northeast. It's whatever you want to make of it, but it makes sense, right? That is a special, special program that has developed, no pun intended, dogs over the last couple of years. They've won a couple of national championships. DeAndre Swift, not a part of that, but a very, very good player and pro-ready players who can impact the game right away. Howie Roseman, he could not help himself. Insert any gift that you want. He's the turtle hump in the crock. He's Donald Trump, whatever. Grade the Eagles draft class for me. A, B, C, D, or F. My overall grade for what the Eagles did here, how can you not say A? It's the trade for DeAndre Swift. It's all of the good and quality players that they drafted. And honestly, a lot of the players who they drafted here over the last 3 days, they can impact the game and impact this team right away for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations and help you in the future as well. What I love about the Philadelphia Eagles, they understand and they see that the pathway in the NFC is open. They understand that they can dominate this conference over the next 5 to 10 years. And Howie Roseman is going for it and going at the neck of every other general manager, not just in the NFC, but across the National Football League. And I love the all-in nature and the aggressive attitude and mentality for this organization right now. I thought that Jeffrey Lurie, when he was talking to Nolan Smith, he said, "You know what we're about here. We're about winning championships and that confetti falling." That's what the Birds are trying to do. Give me another Super Bowl, give me a Lombardi trophy, and this weekend helps the Eagles get back on that path.